Just going to give an idea of the teardrop doors that I came up with. Wiley windows made out of PVC, and they're not going to rot out, they're not going to fall apart. Notice that the camper looks a little hacked around the door frame. Did this in a hurry because the doors I had were falling apart, and I realized it right before I went on a trip. But just to give you a general idea, normal teardrop hardware, I always set them up so that the outside has to go up. And a lot of people won't figure that out and think your door is locked and just walk away. But that way I never actually have to lock them. But here's the inside, and this is all that PVC lumber you can find at Home Depot. Plastic, standard size plastic window. Wiley window setup, and just simply a block of foam in place here to keep the window open. And if I could dig that out of there, I think it's frozen in place. It's about 16 degrees out right now, so it's a little cool out here. Not camping weather. But what I use for my door frame is just, I glue a piece of plywood, you can see over there, to the inside wall. I haven't finished this trailer very well. I've always been in a hurry when I've been working on it. Need to finish it right someday. But anyways, piece of plywood, cut back, door seals against it, nice and tight like that. You have a window. This is your screen frame. And I'm just going to show you the process of building one, because here I built one here. Fortunately, I built it backwards. I built it for this side of the trailer, not the other side of the trailer. So I can't cut the window in it because the frame will get in the way. So I'm going to show you how I build one so that you can see how this works. And the process I've come up with. Adhesive I use. This is the type of PVC lumber I like to use. Just cellular PVC. It's actually very strong and it's stable, but as you notice, the latch is supposed to be on the wide part, and I stuck it on the narrow part. That's supposed to be the hinge side. So I got to build a new door with the lumber set up the correct way, and I'm just going to show the process. Just running through the materials. What it will take to make one of these doors. Actually, a pair of them is what you'll need. But some of the materials are only for one. This is 6mm, which is roughly 1/4 of an inch, 4 feet by 8 feet. And this was $38.47. Then you need 2 of these 1/4 inch or 1 by 4 by 8, which actually works out to 3/4 by 3.5 by 8. Those come out to, for 2 of them, was $35.16. Then we go over here to a 1 by 3 by 8, which is of course actually 3/4 by 2.5 by 8. And that worked out to $25.50. And one of these, 1 by 2 by 8, 3/4 by 1.5 by 8, and that one came out to $6. And this is enough to make one door and possibly part of the second door. You're also going to need a couple tubes of something that is a very strong adhesive. Make sure in particular that on the back where it lists the materials, it will say PVC is one of the ones that it is good for. I also found this power grab, which I haven't tested yet, but it also says it's for PVC, and if it is, that means they tested it and it's good. Both of them, I can't remember the price, they were both $5-6, maybe a little more for a tube. And you're going to need probably 2, maybe a little more, but depends on how thick you lay it on when you're putting it together. So of course, when you're going to make a door, you need to have an idea of the dimensions you want. In my case, I made them generous and come out to 27 inches wide by a little over 38 inches tall. And I like the nice rounded top corner shape. This is my old door. Now normally if you're doing this, you would actually be taking the cutout that you made in the wall and laying that on the panel that you're going to be copying the shape onto. So you're going to take your pencil, marker, whatever you're going to use, and you're just going to trace the outside of it, and that will be the cut line for the new outside door skin. Nice thing about working with the PVC is this is designed to be a replacement for exterior wood. It's dimensionally stable, doesn't rot, and all of the tools that you would use to cut wood, saw blades, planes, anything you can imagine, will work this stuff the same as wood. It's awesome. And if you notice, I cut wide of the line most of the way. I actually go back afterwards with the power plane and smooth it all off and make it even, but I'd much rather have that than have a gap between the edge of the wood and the interior framing, because I cut right on the line or inside the line. Just a trick you learn when you work with plywood, but it works for this kind of stuff too. So when you are making this stuff into the outside surface of your door, one of the things to be aware of is the outside has like a wood grain pattern in it, and the other side is smooth. So if you want really, really smooth on the outside, do that on the outside. But if you want the wood grain on the outside, do that. And make sure, so some little gremlin doesn't sneak in your shop and change things while you're not looking, that you write on which one is the outside. And it might be good to put hinge, latch, that kind of stuff on there, just so you don't end up like me having to make a third door, which I will have a use for. I'm planning on building another foamy probably this year, so that door will find a home on the new foamy. But just and then the same thing on this side. You want a label. Now I know this is hinge, and that makes a difference because the hinge side gets the skinnier lumber, and the latch gets the fatter lumber. And that does make a difference. That's how I messed up my other door. So just be aware that you need to keep track of both of those. Okay, so now it comes to laying out your door frame pieces. First one is a 1x4, and you want it to go horizontally. This is the foundation of the door, I guess is what to call it. This kind of sets up the way everything else is going to fit here. So you get that laid out. Mark it for exactly where the edge of the door is here. Give or take just a little bit. Always better to leave a little extra if you can. And then with that piece laid on the door the way it's supposed to go, next thing you want to do is take your 1x3, fit that to get together nicely with the other one, and get your square, because of course if you're a builder you have a square, right? And sighting straight down on here where the all the lines intersect, the curve of the top of the door, the line coming up here, and the line of the square, and mark that across, and that will be your cut line on a nice 45-degree angle for the first layer of the door frame. So there we go. This is the bottom piece. Then we have the inner door post for the hinge line. And the next one we're going to work on is our latch vertical. Then once again, sighting, this is on the latch side. We have the 1x4. You can see here's the vertical, here's the curve, which you almost can't see because of the square, but you can see the angle of the two right there. Slide the square down until it eclipses the other two, right at an even point for all three, and draw your next 45-degree cut. You'll notice on your corners, the overlap, you do want to have somewhat of a gap here. So if you have to cut this long, in order to ensure that with the top of this piece, lined up along the top of the door, as you can see here, that's actually good because you want to have a little bit of an overlap just for sealing purposes when you're putting this all together. So there you go. There's your first layer of the door, I guess you call it the outer ring, the one that goes actually against the door skin itself. Next we'll show you how to make the inner skin. And in this case, what we're really looking to do is to make sure that all of our seams have an overlap. So let's say that piece, so there's an overlap here. And up here, we're going to have a piece bridging the gap like that. I'll show you that coming right up. Okay, when you begin your second layer, you have to start with one of the top right corners. You're going to do that by taking the piece that you cut earlier, and you're going to line that up here on this corner like that, so that it's at a 45 to your vertical pieces. And then you want to mark where it meets these corners of the vertical piece or the horizontal piece across the top. And this is how we get our overlaps on our joints. So there you have the corner block for, this is the one that you start with, just like on the first ring we started on the bottom piece. This one we start with one of the angles and lay out the rest following off of that. And then you want to go to your next corner piece right here, the opposite corner, and once again try and line up so that you have things matching and meeting. And you want to mark where this one lines up on your vertical piece right there on the latch side of the door. And as you can see, I used my square to line up on those marks. Mark across for my cut line. And now with your two corners made, you can lay out the rest of the door, starting of course with the top piece that's in between these two. We have to cut a piece to fill that gap. So you take your piece of continuing waste, last piece we have over here, and we're going to mark right here to know where we want to mark that this has to be cut that way so we don't cut it wrong. And now we'll cut a 45 on this, and that will make the filler piece for the top. As you can see, I didn't cut my filler piece exactly long enough, but this really isn't that critical because your door frame is only going to rest against about this much of it. So slight steps off like that will not hurt anything, and we'll use the power plane afterwards, or I do, to round this all off the way I want, and then eventually to route a groove in right here for the door seal, which I'll show you that in a later step. On our hinge side, we take the waste piece, or the leftover piece, not waste, and butt that in nicely at the top corner, as you can see. And then we're going to mark down here at the bottom, and see we have our overlap of this stops here, there's the bottom piece there, this comes over that. That's where we're getting our structural continuity in our materials so that things come together the way they should, and keeping the door all tight and square the way we want it to. And once you get it cut, notice how it fits in. It's got nice, pretty solid joints here. We'll use some of that glue, the adhesive that we're doing in all these joints to fill them and make them tight, airtight, watertight, which is what we really want to have with the door. And you make the latch side of the door the exact same way. You take a piece of 1x4, put it in. If you have enough, you might be able to get this out of your first piece. If not, you'll have to get it out of your second piece. Obviously your 45 at the top, your height dimension marked right here, on the bottom. Lay it all on the door the way you want. And there's the second ring laid out, everything except the bottom piece. This is where we change things up a little bit. You'll notice a couple other features I like about the way this comes out. You get these pockets here in the top corner. Now, I like them because they make a nice handle to hold onto the door with when it's open. But obviously, if you want to insulate this, because PVC is not the most insulated material in the world, that'll make it easy to tuck foam back underneath those corners to insulate this panel. But I just like the way it's kind of one of those things that happened. I didn't plan it, it just happened that way. So this is where your 1x2 comes into play. We have been using the 1x3 on the hinge side, the 1x4 on the latch side. Now we're going to repeat this bottom piece, but we're going to repeat it with the 1x2. I'm going to mark the length we want to have it, just like I marked that there. And so that goes across the very bottom, and you go, well, why are we doing this? Well, remember I showed, I like the Wiley window. I think that's an awesome way to do it. You need that bottom channel for drainage, and this is the way I came up with to set it up. Now, I cut another bottom piece, same length as that. Set it in here, like so. Looks like I'm going to have to trim it a little more to fit. And there's my window ledge. This will all be sealed up with the sealant when it all goes together, and clamped and glued and all that fun stuff. And now I've got a ledge for my window to sit down into. Now when I make these windows, I simply go to Home Depot, and for not much money, I forget what it is at this point because I've had this one for a good amount of time, I get, it's an 18 by, well, let me measure it just to make sure. But it's, yeah, 24 that way, 18 this way. Home Depot, Lowe's, probably Menards. I've never been in a Menards in my life. A lot of places have these pre-cut, ready to go. It's just a piece of plexiglass, Lexan, whatever it is, plexiglass. It's 1/4 inch thick, so it's got a little bit of rigidity. It's not be all floppy like most of your Lexan. And that's the size window that I use. And that sits right down in that bottom track. It has enough width to hinge out and to go closed, because I always want it so that when the window is open, it's 1/3 of the total area of the window. And the whole trick to the Wiley window is you take the glass out and you've got a full window. And basically the hole that we're going to cut is going to be about 1 inch in. So that was 18 by 24. So we end up with a 16 by 22 window, which, good luck if you can price out anything remotely close to the cost of this in a camper window, in one of those little teeny tiny windows they make for sheds, whatever you want. The shed windows really aren't safe because it's not tempered glass, and if it shatters you'll get fragments going everywhere, like if a rock hits it or something. This is plexiglass. You won't break it. I don't know why you'd ever have to, but if you ever have to replace it, you lose it on the road or whatever, go into another hardware store and get another one, pre-cut, ready to drop in place. I don't think there's a better deal for a window. Is glue it together, but obviously you want to put the puzzle back together the way you just made it. So you're going to mark your joints. I prefer to do like a 1 and 1, so I know that those two ones touch. And then I'll do a 1, actually let's, 2 and 2, like that. 3 and 3, 4, 4, and same thing, 5, 5, 6, 6, all the way around. Take this layer off, mark the next layer the same way so I know how it goes together. Glue it, clamp it with weights, and once it's all glued and secured the way you want it, now you just simply go back and attach it to your, once you have it all together, you'll glue it obviously right directly to the outer skin, You'll put it, I like to do it with bricks, but heavy weights. You want to glue it together. And I'm working in a cold basement. I also use screws to actually drive everything together nice and tight. Just regular old wood screws. They work perfectly in this PVC. And that way you end up with the door frame tight, square, and flat the way you want it. And this is something that doesn't change with temperature. They engineered PVC so you won't have problems with it. If you put it on your house with temperature changes, it's going to change just like the wood and the other materials you put on the outside of the house. And it's worked perfectly fine on your Teardrop. I've had one door on my Teardrop for 2 years, and the door that I messed up for just, I made it this, I think this past summer. The other one I made before that. And they work great. And that's why I'm showing it to you guys. Okay, so I'm applying the glue. The best that I have found is first do a kind of a zigzag like that down the middle. This is where your strength is all derived from, and the glue as it's spread from being compressed should spread itself fairly evenly over here. The big thing you want to remember is the edges are your waterproofing. So as far as your door being watertight, you want to run a bead sort of down the edge, but not too close to it, or you know it's just going to all lose out. And just run it down along here like that, make it a continuous line. Same thing here, and it doesn't help to have one. It doesn't hurt to have one. Going down the other side too. Doesn't have to be that fat of a bead, just has to be continuous to give it a good continuous bond line. And then down here, it's always better to do it on the part you're gluing rather than on the door, because that way you know exactly how much area to cover and you're not overdoing it. So with the glue laid on, put that down like that. Get that tight as you can. Make sure everything's good. Now this is going to get all over your hands, so I really should be wearing gloves, which I'm not right now. Kind of dumb. And then you just keep working your way around till you have everything glued together the way you want, and then press it down with bricks or other weights to set it all in place. Screws will definitely help in keeping it all aligned so it doesn't shift on you. And I do those after I have the glue installed. It also really helps to lay out your panels kind of so you know where they're supposed to go before you're laying the glue on, because when you're laying glue you already got to be thinking, oh, I got to flip it over, I got to put glue on which side and all that. So lay them out ahead of time, kind of in an exploded view. Gives you a whole lot easier way to keep track of what goes where, so now you can just focus on gluing it together. And yeah, I do leave the stickers on. It's never caused a problem. If you really want to, you can take them off, but I haven't seen the point. So one thing to remember when you're gluing this, you want to remember that underneath this corner, you don't want to have glue so that this is there. So when you're laying it on these, you got to be more careful than on the rest so that that pocket stays clear. And then on this bottom one, it's actually better to do your glue on this surface, and that surface, and not the back of this, because you don't want any glue inside this channel. However, you do want this seam to be very well glued, because this is what keeps the water from running down through your door, which isn't a problem except for those of us that live in areas where it actually gets cold and we have real winter sometimes. And water could get in there, freeze, expand, and blow this apart. So the water that comes on the window will run down. You drill drain holes and the water runs out. So you want to make sure that that channel is well sealed and you don't have extra glue up here along the top, just down in this section right here.